forward to this show with great anticipation because I have as my guests Billy Red Lyons and Angelo Mosca. And I'll tell you this much, fellas, don't worry, I'm going to behave myself today. Nice to have you on the show.
Thank you, that's a pleasure.
Angie, you had the transition as being one of the toughest football players going. You were a mean guy when you played for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and you've moved into wrestling, and now you're a star in wrestling. Was it difficult to make the transition?
First of all, I want to go back and say it. I wasn't mean. I think I played the game the way it was designed to be played because I enjoyed it and I was an intense type player. The transition was tough because in professional wrestling, when you're wrestling for maybe 40, 50, 60 minutes, you have to have that dexterity and stamina. Where in professional football, you run one play, you might get a 30-second breather. And I think that wrestling helped my football background in my last 3 or 4 years, and I learned how to relax and control myself and be at all wits' ends at all times, which you have to be in professional wrestling.
If you talk to a wrestler, or if you talk to a football player or coach, they always say it's concentration. You have to concentrate. Isn't that right, Bill?
Very, very true.
Now, this concentration, when you're in the ring, and everybody's yelling and screaming, and Bill, you do the color commentary, and you've been in so many rings you've lost count. Do the fans have any influence on you at all? Do they break that concentration?
I wouldn't say so. They don't break your concentration, but it sure does give you that extra drive. Just like Angelo, I think he'd agree with me, just like it would give the football player an extra drive when they're playing in their home park, you know, and the people get behind them. It gets that adrenaline going a little more, and you're able to dig down a little deeper and get that last little bit that you need.
Well, wrestling really has had peaks and valleys. It'll be up at the top, and then it'll seem to hit a norm. We talked about this.
Right.
And then it's coming back up. What really is it that attracts the wrestling fan?
I think, first of all, if you go back to yourself when you were a young boy, I think head-to-head confrontation. Wrestling has weight classes, and they start from there. And unfortunately, today you have athletes who are big, who can move, have agility and stamina. But I think it's the head-to-head confrontation, the battle, and it's over 3,000, 4,000 years old. And I think generation changes, but they go back to that one-on-one situation.
He made a good point there. You get two little boys, or even two little girls, or a boy and a girl that size. One will want to try the other one out, won't they?
That's right.
I mean, it starts as a young child.
Right.
But when you think of wrestling, when you look at it, you've got Angelo Mosca and Billy Ray Lyons, you've got all the stars. Isn't it really a morality play, Bill? In other words, good overcoming evil? Isn't that what it's all about?
Well, I think you could sum it up that way. People will there's favorites, and then there's others that people refer to as villains, and it depends. I know a lot of people say, well, are you the good guy or are you the bad guy? Right? Well, the people determine who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. For example, myself, or I think Angelo will agree with me, we could wrestle the same way, for example, say in Los Angeles, as we wrestled in Toronto or Hamilton or wherever. Los Angeles, for some reason, the people may not take to us. They may not like us.
Very, very true.
And then you may move over to New York, and you may have the same situation as here. They may love you for some reason. So this image, like the good guy and the bad guy image, the people determine who's going to be the good guy and who's going to be the bad guy.
I've worn those hats, Billy, in football in 8 other cities for 15 years, so...
they love you in Hamilton, they hated you in Toronto.
Right, Toronto, Vancouver.
That's why I'm saying, because I came from Toronto. I said, you're a tough player. Now you know why.
Well, yeah, but it was a lot of fun at the time, and when I look at situations today, there's no happy notes in the sports page anymore, and I think the happy notes are coming back to the wrestling fan, because we don't delve in dollars and cents. We're giving people pure entertainment, and which was originally what sports was all about, pure entertainment.
You've made a good point there. You look at the sports pages today, and all you read about are conflicts and players arguing with the owners and contract disputes and everything like this. Why is it that there hasn't been that type of press for wrestling?
Well, I think, first of all, the individual has pride. We're going out there showing our athletic skills, our charisma, which every athlete has, and we're getting paid very, very well for what we do. In professional wrestling, you have 2 things that you can do. You can choose your territories and you can choose your friends. We're individuals, and if you don't like it here, you can move on elsewhere. So we're paid according to what we draw. So we're like a salesman on commission. If you don't hustle and you don't have the best talent in the world, you're not going to draw people. And right now, this is the hotbed area of professional wrestling, and Billy and myself are paid very well for what we do. We're very content and happy. We don't scream to the sports writers we're not making X number of dollars.
And not only that, you put on a good show, and I mean that sincerely. It's part entertainment. It's sport, but I mean there's a lot of entertainment to it too.
Well, it's just like you watch basketball, football, baseball. Guys, you're looking at the camera, number one, and all this stuff. It's the same thing.
Just watch the Harlem Globetrotters. There's a good analogy there.
Exactly. You have to have a certain amount of showmanship in any form of professional athletics. If you don't, well then you're dead. And one thing that has made professional wrestling so successful is for the simple reason that we have such a variety. Mm-hmm. There's no two wrestlers identically the same.
Characters. Characters now. There's no other Angelo Mosca or Billy Red Lyons.
No, Billy can't do what I can do, and I can't do what Billy can do.
I'll tell you what.
And that's why people come out, because they're seeing Billy in one match, me in another, and someone else in another. So we're giving them there's a
something there for
conflict of
everybody.
interest.
Well, I'll tell you this much. Frank Tunney, he'll be on the next segment, is known in wrestling throughout North America and around the world, one of the finest promoters going. And we've got a clip here of one of his performances or one of his matches at Maple Leaf Gardens. And I'll tell you this, you correct me. I'll tell you this much. Maple Leaf Gardens is packed for the most part when Frank Tunney puts on a card, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, Frank's always tried hard to give the people the best.
Boy, has he
Right now, I think you're looking at two of the best.
Well, I won't argue with that. Hey, listen, how big's your hand? If you think I'm going to argue with you, you're crazy. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at this. Look at you. There you go.
Oh, my gosh.
You were trying to tell me something. Let's have a look at this clip and see what's happening in Maple Leaf Gardens.
In the place now, standing in, love it. Now, Patterson once again takes that leg and wraps it around that post once again. He's back in the ring. Now he'll try and finish him off. And if he does, this place is going to go wild. Well, if he can finish him off, no doubt they'll be celebrating in California tonight. Koloff scoops both legs out, goes for a pin. He's got both feet on the ropes. The referee, what have we got a winner here? The referee didn't see the feet on the rope. He did not see the feet on the rope. Wait a minute, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Hold everything. Here's Leroy Brown. He says to the referee, no, he had his feet on the ropes. He had his feet on the ropes. Now, Terry Yorkson. And he reverses it. He reverses it. The winner, Pat Patterson. And he was saved literally by big, bad Leroy Brown. Now, Leroy Brown going to work on Koloff. Ole Anderson is in there, too. Everything has come unglued. John, this is broken into a Pier 5 brawl. Now, Leroy Brown with that big helmet of his. Clobbers Ole Anderson. Down he goes. Leroy picks him up. In the meantime, Patterson goes to work on the Russian out on the ramp. Well, justice has been served here, Bill. Bedlam is broken loose. Here comes Anderson down the ramp. And once again, Leroy Brown lets him have one on the head with that helmet. Now, Patterson has Ole Anderson hooked, and Leroy lowers the boom once again. The big fella has restored order here, if you can believe it, and the fans love every minute of it. Well, did he clean house or didn't he? And now another good shot by Leroy. He's not finished. He throws Anderson. Throws him back into the ring. And then comes the big man from Chicago. And he goes to work on Anderson. Another right, and another right. And down goes Ole Anderson. Big bad Leroy Brown. And you can hear the chant, Leroy, Leroy. We thought that Ivan Koloff was going to steal that match. He was, because the referee didn't see his 2 feet outside the ropes. And then Leroy Brown came in to restore law and order. Now Terry Yorkson trying to restore order here. And are we going to have another match here or what? I think they've just gone right into their match was to follow. I believe their match was to follow the match between Pat Patterson and Ivan Koloff. They didn't wait for introductions or nothing. And Leroy now drops 2 chops to the shoulders of Ole Anderson. And everybody in the place is standing, and Leroy catches him an elbow coming off. Down he comes with another one. This is not Leroy.
Well, I'll tell you this much. If I ever got hit like that, I'd be in the middle of next month. I think that you summed it up, Billy, when you said in your color commentary there, and the fans love it.
Yes, they do, and especially that night. I remember that particular match in the Gardens. There must have been 14, 15,000 people there, and there wasn't one person that was sitting. Everybody was standing, and it was complete chaos. But like I said, the people, they loved it. They felt that they really got their money's worth.
Conn Smythe, Maple Leaf owner and founder, coined the phrase, if you can't lick them in the alley, you can't, if you can't beat them on the ice, you can't lick them in the alley, or vice versa. Now, he was very, very concerned about the fact he didn't want his players fraternizing with other players and other teams, because it said that, you know, okay, fine, how can you go out and have a beer? How can you go out and have a beer with the boys from Montreal and then try and beat them on the ice that night? What about the wrestlers, Angelo?
It's the same way, because you take all your confrontations to the squared circle. I might see my opponent on the street, but I wouldn't fraternize with him, because well, there's going to be another situation. I don't want anything to arise there. We want to do everything in the middle of the ring.
But you do make a lot of good friends in wrestling, though.
Oh, yes. It's a great, great business. Where else can you see the world and make a great living?
Well, we can do something right now, make a living, get some commercials going, and then come back with Mr. Frank Tunney. I'll return in just one moment right after these messages. We're back, and joining me now is Mr. Frank Tunney, a legend in wrestling circles. A pleasure to have you on the show, Frank.
Thanks very much, Doug. Glad to be here.
Why is it that wrestling has resurfaced and come back into its own?
Well, probably the bank manager needed the money. Anyway, it goes up and down a little bit, sort of on a valley and a hill, like riding in the Maritimes. It depends on the attractions you have to offer, and also the opposition the night of your event.
What about the attractions? Now, you have featured the baddies, the Sheiks, and the good ones, the Whipper Billy Watsons, and the Moscas, and the Billy Red Lyons, and so forth. Which is easier to sell, a heavy or a good guy?
Well, the ultimate is to sell one against the other. The ones that the people, those are the ones that the people suggest. And as a matchmaker, you're a fan in the sense that you listen to what the fans want to get, and then you do your best to get it using your own judgment as well. Like, in other words, if you guess right, you'll get a lot of people. If you guess wrong, you're...
Who has the final say when it comes to a card? Billy, you were wrestling, and Angelo, you're wrestling. Do you pick your opponent, or does Frank?
No, well, our contracts are submitted to the NWA, and then Frank has the last approval.
Yes, but I mean, when you watch the interviews on television, you know this very well, Billy, that they'll come on and they'll say, boy, I want that guy, and I want him so bad I can taste it, and I'm going to offer a challenge to him. Is that just blowing smoke, or are they sincere?
No, in a situation like that, maybe the wrestler, he wants the promoter to hear this. And if the promoter feels that if he does book this particular fella against a certain wrestler, if the promoter thinks that that will fill the arena, he'd be foolish not to try and sign that match, you see. So a lot of fellas will take it on their own, try to create a match, because they feel that if they get that spot, they're going to get a nice big payday too. And if the promoter thinks, like I said, he thinks it's going to sell out his arena, he's going to get a nice payday.
Well, we talk about paydays, I mean, and we all know that they're million-dollar contracts in you know, in baseball, and they're coming into hockey and football and everything else. I've read stories that one of the highest paid athletes in the world is a wrestler. Is that true? Is wrestling one of the top financial sports?
No, I wouldn't say it's the highest, no, but...
I'm talking before the $2 and $3 million a year contracts.
Yes, well, average, you know, like fellows like Ric Flair, and when they're the champions, they would make anywhere up to close to $500,000 a year.
Well, they earn it, though. They wrestle, about, what, 40 weeks a year and that sort of thing?
That's the old cliche of supply and demand.
Yeah.
How often do you wrestle, Angelo, on the average?
I have been, I just left the New York area and I was wrestling an average of 5 nights a week.
How on earth do you do it?
Well, it's the conditioning and it's the enjoyment.
Yeah, but the reason I asked you that is when you played in the CFL, it was 13 games. Of course, you had all your practices and your postseason games and so forth. But 5 nights a week, is it more difficult to take a hiatus and drop off for a couple of weeks holidays and then come back, then keep on wrestling?
It's tougher to drop away from wrestling for 2 weeks because your timing is off. Your breathing. That's why I'm spending time in the gym right now, just keeping my stamina and just keep working out real hard so when I do get back into the ring, because if you get a fellow who's moving pretty good pace, you've got to keep up with the pace. You have to have counter holds and so forth and so on. So to take 2 weeks off from wrestling or a month is tough because you lose your timing in that ring.
Billy, when you're in the ring, you're more of a scientific wrestler, like the Whipper Billy Watson type wrestler, correct?
Yes.
Everybody has a hero. Who was yours?
Oh, gee, I had several of them. Whipper Watson, for one. Buddy Rogers, I used to enjoy watching him. Lou Thez. I like watching Ric Flair. Angie here, I enjoy watching him. I could go on and on. I wouldn't say there was any one particular wrestler who was my hero.
But do you pattern yourself after a wrestler?
Not
you mentioned
really.
Lou Thez. Whipper Billy Watson told me that, as far as he's concerned, one of the finest gentlemen that ever entered a ring was Lou Thez.
Yes, he was. And he still is at fine.
And he underlined the gentleman part, Frank.
Right. There was something about, I think Frank will agree with this, there was something about Lou Thez. Everybody has something a little different about them that stands out. When you saw Lou walking down the street, even when he was in his street clothes, there was something about his walk, the way he carried himself. He even looked like a champion walking down the street. Isn't that right, Frank?
Yes, it's true.
Angie, how many Grey Cups were you on?
I was on 9.
And how many did you win?
5.
They must have been a great thrill for you.
It was a lot of fun, and I think that's what probably carried me over into wrestling, because I've had a locker room rapport with athletes for almost 30 years now. Yeah. And I think when you lose that, it's time to leave, but I haven't lost it yet, and I'm looking forward to a lot more locker room time.
Now, every athlete has a goal. They want to achieve something. What do you want to achieve before you say, that's it, I'm through?
I don't think there's a goal in what I want to win or get. I think an athlete works for total independence. And as a professional wrestler, you have what you call total independence. I go where I want, do what I want. Of course, I pay my dues to get where I am at today. You just don't start from the top and work down. I worked to the top in professional wrestling. I worked my way up. I was an opener, and now I'm strictly a main eventer. And I think the ultimate goal is total independence.
And you know something that says it all, total independence. No matter what team sport you're in, you have a coach, and you have a manager, and you have an owner, and everybody telling you what to do. The only one you have to worry about, first of all, are the fans, and then the promoter. Frank, you have some great bouts at Maple Leaf Gardens, and we talked about the fact that fans are coming out more and more, and you're packing them in. How far ahead do you plan a match or a card?
We actually go from show to show, although we might have a certain individual contracted maybe a month, 2 months, 3 or 6 months ahead, without being a match, but you have you might say the approval of that person that he will be there on that date. But generally, just for making up matches, we do it from after the one show is over, you go to the next one.
I know Angie and Billy would agree with this, that especially in Toronto, in Southern Ontario, in Toronto, Maple Leaf Gardens, you get the top stars. You book the top stars in the wrestling circuit. And that must say something about the wrestling fans in Toronto and this area. Is this one of the best wrestling areas in the country?
Absolutely. I think Toronto has had the reputation ever since I can remember, when I was that high, being probably not the greatest, but one of the greatest cities in North America for professional wrestling.
Is it because of a man like Frank Tunney?
Absolutely, he has a big part to
You know, Billy was telling me your pay will go up, Billy. Billy was telling me the other...
Frank, I want to tell you something. I got to confess. Billy said, give me that line.
Billy was telling me the other day, I think the world-renowned areas are probably St. Louis and Toronto, because there's probably been more championship matches held here, Billy. I mean...
That's where Thez came from, wasn't it, St. Louis?
That's right.
And this place has a great reputation. There's many stars have passed through 45 years of Frank's promotion.
Hey, what about Japan? It's really a wrestling country, isn't it?
Oh, yes, very much so. Actually, sumo wrestling is big, but now catch-as-catch-can wrestling is probably a bigger attraction now than the sumo.
Are they just as militant and ardent as they are here?
Oh,
yelling
yes.
and screaming?
Oh, yes,
Or
yes,
or they remain stoic?
Well, no, they started that way several years ago. I was over in 1968, and someone threw I guess you'd call it a water bucket or something from the balcony down. He didn't throw it at anybody, just dropped it. And the promoter there said that was the first time that anything like that had ever happened. They always just sat there and whistled.
You know, I saw a cartoon in a newspaper one time, but it was a sports cartoon, and here was a little old lady, and she had her purse under her arm, she had an umbrella, and she was hitting a guy like you, about 10'6", and he was running for cover. Do you get many of them trying to get at you?
Well, I just encountered one recently in Washington, D.C., and they say a little old woman, I got hit with a cane. But that's a rarity. I think there's a stigma attached to the profession where a little old lady or other professions have other stigmas attached to it.
Yeah, but you know something, just in summing up, that I think should be said is this: whether it's a stigma or not, it means that the fans get involved.
Oh yes, I think there's more. Should be more sports where fans get involved. And I just watched some football on TV where the fans are getting involved. And I think that rather than just a layback type thing, that's how people come out, and that's how you draw people when fans get involved.
I'll tell you this much: the fans certainly get involved with wrestling. Let's take a break, and we'll return in just one moment after these messages. Frank, if you could put together one last bout, who would you like to match? Of all the stars you've had at Maple Leaf Gardens.
It's hard to get it down to one. One I'd like to make before I retire is Angelo Mosca against Ric Flair. I think that would fill the house.
All right, Billy, you're independent. Who would you put your money on?
Well, I'd have to go ahead. That's a good choice.
You know who you're sitting beside.
I know Ric Flair, and he's a tough individual and a great wrestler.
Who's the toughest one you ever wrestled, Angie?
That's really tough. You know, I figure anybody who can step into that ring in head-to-head, they got to be all tough.
And they've got to be tough. Well, listen, it's just been great having you guys in the show. It wasn't tough at all. What a pleasure to meet all three of you. I mean it sincerely.
My pleasure.
We've been talking about wrestling. My guests have been, of course, Mr. Frank Tunney, a legend in wrestling, Billy Red Lyons, and Angelo Mosca. And every month at Maple Leaf Gardens, there's a great bout. So look at your papers and you'll see who's there. I thank them for joining me. Naturally, as always, I thank you for joining us. It's been my pleasure. Until next time, goodbye.